Welcome to Locked On Horned Frogs. Our friend Tommy Fisher is here with us. He is swolled up and ready to rock and roll, talking some TCU athletics. We'll do it next on Locked On Horned Frogs.
You are Locked On Horned Frogs, your daily podcast on the TCU Horned Frogs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You know the drill. Locked On Horned Frogs. You can subscribe on YouTube, wherever it is you get your podcast. I'm Steven Simcox. Tommy Fisher is next to me. Tommy, we've had him on the show twice before. And if you want to find his first interview from back in the fall, it's pretty fascinating. Tommy's lived an interesting life. He played college football in North Dakota. Is that right, Tommy?
Sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. North Dakota, spent some time in the military, moved around a lot, has lived in places like Hawaii, ended up in the Fort Worth area, and just sort of stumbled upon TCU athletics as the football team was sort of ascending up and decided this is the type of program I want to throw my, passion behind. So really good communicator, knows what he's talking about, knows sports. So we're excited to have him with us. And good timing because we're in the middle of spring practice. And Tommy, we both spoke before the season, and we were both wrong about a few things. Like we both kind of thought TCU could be good, probably not great. We both thought Chandler Morris would be the quarterback. Well, everything sort of did a 180. They go 12-0, make the national title game. But now Chandler Morris is going to be the QB. Yeah. And there's a lot of other moving parts, position changes, that type of thing that are happening. So over these few weeks of practice, what are some things that you would like to have answered or see some clarity on before they hit the offseason program and go into fall camp?
So before we get started, I want to thank the Lord for Max Duggan because I just, I knew he had heart. I knew he had all these intangibles and everything. And man, I just, that guy, he just, I'm glad he proved me wrong. I mean, he got so much better as a passer. I'm really looking forward to seeing what he can do in the league. Yeah. With that said, this is our year to be right. Chandler will be the quarterback.
Yes.
So the things that I kind of want clarity on going into this, spring ball section here, I want to know, or I want to see what we have with Hoover, right? A lot of us fans understand that we missed out on a couple high-level recruits at the quarterback position this last cycle, and then we didn't get anybody in the transfer portal that we went after either. So I think if Hoover can come in and prove that he could be a dude, then I think that's going to make a lot of us feel better about things, because we all know that as good as Chandler is when he is on the field, he only really has one really solid game of production. And he's played in, I think he started 3 games.
Yes.
And he's gotten hurt in 2 of them. So that's a legitimate concern. I think regardless of how good or bad Hoover performs in the spring, I know I'm 99.9% sure that we're going to pick somebody up in the transfer portal that's going to come in and be able to compete in the fall. But I think going in, I think we're in a good spot with Chandler. And from what I've read so far, Hoover's been doing pretty well as well. And it's a new offense, so we don't really know. I know it's going to be more based on tempo, probably more vertical passing game. So I'm kind of interested to see how that's going to play out.
So one interesting thing about Hoover that I was thinking about the other night, so he played for Mike Spradlin at Rockwall Heath, and Spradlin was a longtime high school football coach. He recently retired, but he was at Abilene Cooper. He was at Temple, and then he was in the Metroplex. But he is like a Briles disciple.
Yeah.
And I didn't really put this together, because when Kendall got the job, obviously my first thought was, okay, what does this mean for Chandler? What does it mean for some of these wide receivers? But do you think that makes much of a difference? I mean, I know they were already running air raid concepts, but the fact that Hoover's probably familiar with some of the verbiage here and some of the plays and concepts that they're running, I would think that gives them a nice little head start as they start camp.
So I think the last offense we ran under the last guy, I think it required more reads from the quarterback. From watching the old Baylor when they were in their heyday, when they had Briles going, I mean, if you watch their offense, they attacked different defenses differently. They basically had only one or two people who were going full out in their routes.
Yeah.
So you cut the field in half. So you cut down the processing time and the decision making that the quarterback has to go through. So I think it's more quarterback friendly in that way, if that makes sense. And if he has experience doing that in high school, I think that'll benefit him a little bit when he gets where he gets where we are now. So it'll be interesting to see. They're similar, but I think there are a little bit of differences. I mean, I'm not well versed enough to explain everything. I just know that I've watched, other people talk about the Baylor's offense. And if you think about it, it's kind of similar to the offense that Tennessee was running.
Yeah.
Because they had another disciple, and then even Oklahoma has another person that was on that staff. Yeah. And Oklahoma wasn't that great this year, but Tennessee was a fun watch because they chucked it down the field, and they had some speedy guys, which we have speedy guys. So I'm kind of interested, and I'm kind of looking forward to it.
But I agree with you. I think they're going to pick up a transfer guy regardless, just because you got to have 3 scholarship quarterbacks on the roster. It's just, it's imperative in today's college football. So let's transition to wide receivers. And there's been a lot of talk. Sonny Dykes talked about this, and Jeremy Clark, who's been out at practice, has been commenting as well. The slot guys are really showing up. So JoJo Earl, the Alabama transfer, has been impressive. John Paul Richardson had a really nice season at Oklahoma State last year. I know Major Everhart's another guy that Sonny talked about. Can your number one wideout be a guy on the inside, Tommy? Because as that outside receiver position goes, Savion is sort of the heir apparent. I know Jordan Hudson and Cordell Russell, when he gets back from an injury, will be in that mix too. Who do you see stepping up as your number one wideout? And is it possible for that guy to be in the slot, or does it need to be, your traditional more outside the sticks type of wide receiver?
So, I think it's an either or. I'll start off by saying this. I think the wide receiver group as a whole is probably the most talented position we have on the field. And honestly, I thought last year's was excellent. Last year we obviously had Quentin Johnson, who was an obvious alpha, right?
Yeah.
I'm not sure we really have an obvious alpha now. I think that they want Savion to be that guy. They switched him over. I think Savion, I think he's going to attack the season a little different than he has in the past. He made a big jump between his sophomore year and his junior year. He basically doubled everything he did, but he had a tendency to kind of disappear in games. And I think a lot of that is because Hudson was coming up behind him, and kind of, they're splitting time together. But I think Savion, since he has a kid on the way, I think his mental approach is going to be a lot different this year. I expect him to have a big year. With that said, I don't see any reason why like a JoJo Earl can't light it up. There's so many guys. You got so many guys, and I watched film of this the Cordell Russell.
Yeah,
I thought I was watching Des Bryant film when he was in high school. He's like that star. They got similar bodies. They're strong hands. The way they attack the ball, and then the leaping ability. I'm just like, oh man, this dude's going to be a dude. Yeah. Hudson runs good routes. He can get open, but I'm really interested to see JoJo Earl. I'm really interested, Josh, or is it Beck? I think Beck's his name.
Besh. Yeah, Jack Besh. Yep.
Yeah, I want to know what he's going to do. He could be that kind of possession chain mover guy. Not even to mention John Paul Richardson. I think he's that same type of a player where they're just going to move chains. They're going to do the little things. They're going to get open over the middle. I think we're just deep, man. I don't know how they're going to get everybody on the field. I guess Major Everhart's been tearing it up in practice. He's probably the fastest kid on the team. There's just a lot of things we can do, and I'm kind of excited to see, who's going to step up. I kind of like the idea, like when we first started the year, this last year, before QJ got going, the defenses didn't know who to cover,
right?
Because they were trying to double QJ, but then we were hitting everybody. If you remember, that's when Darius Davis was going off. That's when Savion was going off. Other people got involved and they got going. And now, if we don't have a true alpha, you always want a true alpha. But if you don't, but you have a bunch of guys who are really, really good and know their role and excel in their role, it can be a beautiful thing to watch.
Yeah, and the depth is amazing because we didn't even – it's not the same position, but Jared Wiley can play that tight end and be a receiving threat. Possibly DeAndre Rogers. We haven't really seen him yet, but I know he's made some waves. DJ Allen is another name that is a talented guy. So,
Yep, 4-star from last year.
Yeah, there's a lot of options. I guess final thing on the football subject, Tommy, you know well, like games are won in the trenches.
Absolutely.
And that to me was the biggest, like not to harp on it too much, but the Georgia game, like the biggest glaring difference was just the dudes they had up front. So you're changing up your offensive line. You're losing 3 starters. You're losing a couple guys off that D line. Which side of the ball are you more concerned about as far as the trench play? And I guess is that something that you think could be this team's downfall if they don't meet expectations?
So in the beginning, offensive line is always, first of all, offensive line is the most important position group on the field aside from quarterback. Mm-hmm. If you have a bad offensive line, you're not going to do well. You're not going to do well. Doesn't matter how good everybody else is around them. You need to give them time and open holes. With that said, I think the offensive line to start the year, because they need to mesh, they're replacing basically 3 out of the 4 or 3 out of the 5 starters, right?
Yeah.
The good thing is one of them, Lance, has had significant playing time.
Right.
So he was almost like a quasi starter, right? Mm-hmm. I think that's going to help us. I think the transfer coming in, 2 transfers, but actually 3 transfers. The transfer coming in from Arizona State, I can't pronounce his name, so I'm not going to try it. At center, I think he can be a guy. He's got good feet. He's violent. He's got quick hands. I watched him play a little bit. The other guy, the Jackson State guard, that guy.
Willis Patrick.
Yeah, he's a road grader. Mm-hmm. He's a hoss, right? He's a road grader. Now, we haven't seen him do it at this level, but he's got the body type. He's got everything you would want in a guard, right? And then you got who's the other guy from Alabama? Tommy Brockenmeyer.
Yes.
So he's more of a tackle, I think. I think that's where they want to put him. Mm-hmm. But we're returning both of our tackles. And based off what I read, I don't think he's not quite at their level yet. I think he's had injury concerns throughout his career to get to this point. So I think he'll probably be a swing tackle. I think we're going to be okay.
Okay.
I think it'll be the in the middle, and then our bookends on the side, the back side. Now, on the defensive line, I'm really excited to see what we're going to have there. We have a lot of young, high ceiling type of players that I kind of want to see. Both the freshmen from last year, they put on good size. They're fast, they're agile at the defensive end positions. We already know we have a very solid nose guard.
Yeah.
The defensive tackle, we're bringing guys over from the offensive side of the ball. Garrett Hayes, I'm kind of interested to see, I know you talked about this yesterday. Is he just a body, right, that they're just going to use to get reps so everybody can, get reps? Or is he going to be a guy that they're actually interested in moving there? I think I look at him, he's not a chubby dude. He has some leanness. He's got some muscle. If he could play with leverage, he would be great at that defensive tackle spot,
Yeah, I had some skepticism about that, but I will say, like, the way Sonny talked about it in his presser, it sounded like that was something they had thought about for a while. It wasn't as simple as just, okay, practice is starting. We don't have all the guys we need. Let's throw him over here for a few days, see how that goes. So maybe there is something there, but that's good stuff, Tommy, on football. I want to say a quick word about FanDuel, and then we'll talk some basketball. FanDuel, world's best betting partner, official betting partner of the NBA. You can download their safe and secure app. You can also go to FanDuel.com/lockedon to take advantage of their no sweat first bet deal. FanDuel is where the game starts. They're a proud sponsor of the Locked On Network. So a couple miscellaneous basketball notes. Emmanuel Miller has declared for the draft. He is retaining his eligibility, so he can come back. He's going to get a grade and decide what his future is. And then PJ Haggerty, the true freshman this past year, guard who redshirted, he is officially in the transfer portal. So moving on, I guess that doesn't shock me. I mean, I just feel like you can't really redshirt people these days. But we'll see. The coaching staff didn't seem to see a need for him even when Mike was hurt. So I guess they didn't think he was ready ready to play. Tommy, we'll start with this. I know this is kind of a broad question. Do you feel like the team met expectations this year? They made it to the round of 32, didn't get to the second weekend, but do you think they met expectations that they had going into the season?
I would say yes and no. So before the season started, if you were going to tell everybody that, hey, we're going to be a perennial top 25 team, and we're going to make it to the second round, and we're going to lose to a number 3 seed by 3 points. And by the way, you're going to be missing your best players for a large portion of the year. You would have taken that, right? Everybody would have taken that. But we had really high expectations, especially after that Kansas game where we blew them out at their place. Yeah, everything was clicking, everything was wonderful, and then the injury started. I think in that Mississippi State game, I think that's when people had to take a deep breath when Mike Miles went out. It was a big thing, and we only won one game out of like 4 or 5 when he was out. Yeah. So we got to the tournament. We had a decent showing in the Big 12 tournament. We beat a good Kansas State team who's now in the Elite 8, I believe, and we beat them handily. We lost to Texas, who is also probably going to be an Elite 8 team, and they might even go all the way. So there's no shame in that, losing them by 6. And they turned around and destroyed Kansas. So we're good. We're not totally there, but we're as good as we've ever been, I think. And you can't get upset about that. Now there's some things that I saw the last third of the season that was really telling to me is we need better bigs. Yeah. We need better bigs. We got exposed big time in the Big 12 tournament, and then we really got exposed against Gonzaga, and we even got exposed a little bit against Arizona State because they had legit bigs. I mean, I love who's at Coles, 6'7" guy. You can't expect him to cover 7-footers, And it's like we have big guys that have slow feet, and they can't stay in front of a Drew Timme, right? If we had our best success when we put a 6'6" guard on him, I think we need legit bigs. We need more height. I mean, Cork is a decent player, but he fell off big time the last month and a half of the season. He wasn't catching the ball like he should. He wasn't blocking any shots. He wasn't rebounding like you would want him to do. And then Dumbai, I forget to pronounce it. I'm not sure he's the Division I Power 5 type of a player, to be honest. I think he's probably a great guy, but he's got so many holes, man. He doesn't do anything really well. At least Cork can play defense a little bit and stuff like that. I think we need a legit starting center.
Yeah, I think that'll be one of their bigger priorities in the portal. Xavier struggles. I don't know. I felt like last year he was so good in limited minutes. Yeah. And it did seem like he was the type of player that you could give an expanded role to, and it would work better, but it just didn't happen. And I don't really know what Emmanuel Miller will do. I think he's in a tough spot because, everybody thinks progression is linear, like you just get older and you get better. But I think Emmanuel can definitely improve on some things if you could add a 3-point shot or get more reliable in the mid range. But at the same time, I also think like we've seen a lot of his tape now. We kind of know who he is. And so it's that risk reward of like, do I take a chance and go now? Or do I say, I'll take another year and hopefully improve on something and catch somebody's eye. It's a real tough balance. But if he comes back, I think that's a huge deal for TCU basketball, obviously. Let me talk to you about this, though. So I am not, and I don't think you fall in this camp either, but I'm not like a TCU basketball historian. I didn't watch Kurt Thomas. I didn't see the Billy Tubbs teams. But a few weeks ago, I was thinking about, okay, is Mike Miles like the best player ever at TCU? And so I start looking at a list of stats, and he's not in the top 10 in really anything. I mean, he would have been in the top 10 in points, and if he would have stuck around for one more season, which it doesn't sound like he's going to. But they won so many big games with him here. You talked about his impact when he was off the floor. It was a very different team. Do you think he's the best that's ever come through here? I mean, obviously he's one of the best, even though the numbers might not completely back it up from like an all-time career standpoint.
So he's the best player I've seen play in a TCU uniform.
Yeah.
You got to factor this in too. He played last year with probably a broken wrist or whatever, a sprained wrist for half the year. He missed a large portion this year. When he was healthy, I mean, if you go back and you look at that Baylor game last year, right, the game he hurt his wrist, he was on point to get on pace to get 40 points. He was lighting them up. They couldn't stop him. And then he couldn't shoot like he was because his shooting hand was messed up. But he still averaged, I don't know what he averaged, but it was more than everybody else. And he pulled us, to where we got. And then this year he started off really well and he sprained his knee. And you lose a lot of that explosiveness when you have a sprained knee. And I was so proud of him and so inspired by the guts he showed when you obviously saw that when he hurt his knee again.
Yeah.
In the opening round, and the mental fortitude it took for him to play through the pain and lead us to that win. He obviously wasn't the same. If you watch the first 5 minutes of that game, he was trying dunks. I've never seen him try dunking before. He was trying to dunk on everybody, which was so impressive. I mean, after he hurt his knee, he did jump up and swat that 6'11" guy when he tried to dunk. Well, I thought that was pretty awesome.
Yeah.
But he just shows so much heart, and the way he balled out. I mean, he played big when we always needed him to play big. And the difference between him and a guy like Desmond Bain, who's probably the second best player, him or Kenny Hustle that I've seen put on a TCU uniform. Desmond Bain was awesome, but he had a tendency to disappear for large portions of the game when the team needed him, right? Which is really crazy because now if you watch him in the NBA, he's a dude, right? He's a borderline all-star. He's aggressive. He wasn't aggressive when he was at TCU, but Mike Miles definitely is. And I think Mike Miles, he'll have a long NBA career. I think he's a great player.
Yeah, I think so too. And Desmond, I feel like he grew. He was really just a shooter when he got to campus, and ended up becoming somebody who could put the ball on the deck in his final season and get his own shot. But we'll take a small break here, and then we'll talk baseball to wrap things up.
Yep.
All right, we got Tommy Fisher with us. This is Locked On Horned Frogs, and Tommy, I like Tommy. He's a fun guy to be around. He's a fun guy to talk to. I always get a kick out of when he tweets at me or tweets at somebody else, because sometimes some of the frustration comes out. And so Tommy was one of the first people, I think, to kind of start saying maybe this TCU baseball team is not like at an elite level like we think they are right now. They win their first 2 games of the season in big-time fashion, have sort of fallen off since. Now they are 2-0 this week. They beat ACU and Northwestern, 2 teams that they should beat handily. They did do that. They get Kansas this weekend. Would like to see a sweep. Don't know if that's going to happen or not. Tommy, I know you've voiced your thoughts about the issues, the situational hitting. It just hasn't been there. The offense has struggled. Do you think there's a path to turn this around, or do you see like kind of a talent deficiency here that's going to be hard to make up?
So how do I say this? I think going into the year, I mean, I'm not sure how high. I mean, we thought we'd be a contender, right, in the Big 12. I mean,
top 25.
I still think we will be, right? I still think we will be. But those first 2 games, I think it set these unrealistic expectations for a lot of people. And I was watching people go online saying, "Oh, this is the best offense, whatever, blah blah blah. This is that and this," and it was for 2 games against 2 high-level opponents. They came back. They had a decent showing the last game, but they lost. And then after that, it was just like, I think who do we beat? I forgot who we played the mid. I think it was UTA, the midweek game.
Yeah.
And then Florida State came in here and just beat our butts, and it wasn't even close. And that's when I started saying, okay, something ain't measuring up, right? We're not really getting people on base, and then when we are getting people on base, we're not batting them in. We're 2 outs or 1 out, and we have the bases loaded. We're hitting into double plays continuously. The pitching wasn't elite. The pitching was good, but then it's not elite, right? So either you have elite pitching or you have a very good offense. And I think right now we're kind of in between the two. Obviously, this week we beat up on a bunch of mediocre
bad teams. Yeah.
I mean, what really got me was the San Diego series. I was like, there's no way that we should be losing to San Diego, who comes in here with a losing record. And they took 2 or 3 from us.
Well, TCU actually did. They did win those. They won Saturday, Sunday.
Okay,
So they got blown out in that Friday.
We got hammered that first game, and
they got hammered in the first game. You're right.
That's when I was like, I think that's probably when I started going off on people, because I was like, this isn't. It's just, I don't know. It's, and then they lost 2 or 3 to Oklahoma, which they easily could have. We had the lead.
Yeah, should have won Sunday. Didn't do it though.
We did situational hitting again. I don't know, man. We have a lot of individually talented guys, right? I mean, I love what's his name. I love his swing, the left-hander. What's his name?
Braden Taylor.
Oh, I love the way he hits the ball. It's so pretty. And you know, what is it? I forget his name. Backup first baseman. He plays first base sometimes. He had a couple of home runs this weekend.
Oh yeah, Cole Fontenelle.
Yeah, I like his game. I like the young guys. You see, that's the other thing. We're young in a lot of places.
Yeah.
But for a while there, like a lot of our senior guys, they weren't doing what they needed to do. So I'm looking forward to when everybody kind of gets in, and you know, we're still kind of experimenting with who's going to be, you know, who's the good pitchers, who's the relief guy, who's a good long relief, who's a good closer. We're building. We have the capability to turn around. We could still win the Big 12. You know, we have the talent. We need to figure it out, and we need people to perform to their capabilities.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of fascinating things about the team. One is, you know, you have a longtime hitting coach in Bill Mosiello, who has such a distinct style of taking pitches and working up pitch counts. And I say this, like, I don't know a ton about what TJ Bruce's philosophy is, but it seems like these vets are a little confused at the plate. I think that's fair to say. I don't know if they're trying to do too much, if they're trying to do something they haven't done the first couple of years of their career. But even Braden, who's a great player, you know, is hitting bombs, but, you know, his average is not typically what it's been so far in his career. And I think there's time for those guys to figure that out. You know, from an optimistic standpoint, I think, as you said, young talent, a lot of freshman pitchers that are good, some freshman position players like Anthony Silva and Carson Bowen that look really good. But my biggest concern is we're going on, I don't know, 4 or 5 years now. When I started following TCU baseball, what they were known for was elite pitching. Yeah. Preston Morrison, Brandon Finnegan, Alex Young, Mitchell Traver, Brian Howard. I can name all these guys. And they've had some talented guys the last few seasons, like Russell Smith and Austin Krob. You know, Ryan Vanderhei and Cam Brown, I think, have plus stuff. But I just still don't feel like they've been able to develop an ace who on Friday night, like, you know, every Friday night, this guy's going to give me 6 innings, less than 3 runs, keep me in the ball game. Even if he doesn't have his best stuff, he's going to battle. He's going to get critical outs and give you a chance to win. I don't know. It's been a while since they've done that. So I would say that's my kind of biggest long-term concern. But we'll see. They play Kansas this weekend. I think everybody, it's an opportunity to have a feel-good weekend against a KU squad that's not very good. We'll see if that happens. Tommy, thank you for doing this. Before we go, if you want to plug your social media handles or, you know, whatever, where people can find you, they want to follow you, what's the best way to reach you, Tommy?
I think my Twitter is at TRF51.
That's right. Yeah. At TRF51. Follow Tommy on Twitter, all you Frog fans.
I'll fight the good fight with you.
That's right. We'll either, you know, celebrate together or join in our misery.
One of these days we need to do a pod on conference realignment.
Okay, yeah, I'd love that.
Let's talk. The continuous argument between me and SMU fans.
Are you telling me SMU is not the Dallas market, Tommy? You don't think
I'm trying to explain that to them. You know, I'm like, you know, but you're not really, you know, I went off and
the Dallas Cowboys and the SMU Mustangs. Every Dallas.
Everybody wants to. I was like, I'm trying to tell a guy. It's like, I'm like, these people from California, they're trying to, you know, blow wind up people's pipe, and I'm just like, you're not getting the Dallas market. I'm sorry. It's like I lived in Dallas my first 8 years that I lived here, and I never saw anybody wearing any SMU gear. Yeah. It's like I was telling people, I was like, I went to Cabo, and I saw about 15 people wearing TCU gear. You know. That's more than I've ever seen in Dallas, you know. And then even here, it's like I go, I go to the mall or I go wherever, and it's like I see a bunch of kids wearing TCU gear. Now, a lot more than in the past, and I think it's just fascinating what Sonny Dykes is doing with the program, with the culture,
Mm-hmm.
and getting that fan engagement and everything. I think we're in a good spot, man. We're in a good spot, but I think it'd be cool to do a conference realignment pod one day and just kind of talk about TCU and what we could be and all of these other things. I think we're in a good spot.
I think so too. And we'll have to do that sometime. We'll be back Monday. It's your team every day.
All right. Thanks.